I want to bring in someone who led the first impeachment of the former president in the House and also participated in the roughly 18-month-long investigation by the House Select Committee into the January 6th riot, California Congressman Adam Schiff. Congressman Schiff, appreciate you joining us. First of all, just to what former Congressman Zeldin was saying, the criticism about the district attorney in New York who's brought these charges, Alvin Bragg. What do you say to that argument? Because we're hearing it from a lot of Republican members of Congress right now that this is a district prosecutor who said he wouldn't prosecute a number of what people say are serious crimes, and yet is going after what they say is a less serious campaign finance crime.
Well, I think that argument is really beside the point. The key issue is Donald Trump being treated the same as other people similarly situated? That is, other people that have committed business crimes. Is he getting the same treatment? And there's no reason to think that he isn't. And that ought to be the standard. The rule of law should apply equally to everyone. Whether Alvin Bragg is handling other aspects of his job the way some New Yorkers would want or don't want is a completely separate issue. There's a lot more at stake here than the fate of Donald Trump. This is, I think, an affirmation of the principle that no one is above the law, that the law should apply equally, and you follow the evidence where it leads. The Manhattan grand jury believes it led to Donald Trump and it led to criminal activity. If that's the case, and the Manhattan DA believes they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, he should be prosecuted like anyone else.
Do you have concerns about, I mean, there's a lot we don't know. Obviously, we don't know what this indictment is sealed. We don't know what all the counts of it are. We have some sort of broad sense, perhaps. But are you concerned that this may not be the strongest case?
Well, I'm concerned, frankly, that the case that is the most significant, that is the federal case involving Donald Trump's effort to overturn the election, his incitement of the violence on January 6th, all the things that we referred to the Justice Department. The department has taken far too long to investigate and potentially prosecute. Those cases really should have gone first in a system in which you try the most serious cases for which you have the strongest evidence first. But we're in a federal system. The states operate on their own timetable, as do local prosecutors. And the Justice Department only has itself to blame for its slow pace when these events took place more than 2 years ago. And it should have brought, I believe, more urgency to the task.
Your Republican colleagues in the House, as I said, critical of the DA's investigation. Speaker McCarthy said tonight, quote, "The House of Representatives will hold Alvin Bragg and his unprecedented abuse of power to account." What do you interpret that to mean?
Well, I think we're seeing the same thing we saw, frankly, during the Ukraine investigation when your last guest, Lee Zeldin, Donald Trump's criminal defense counsel. That's what Kevin McCarthy is now doing. That's what Jim Jordan is doing. They're threatening to interfere with the Manhattan DA, to subpoena the DA or other prosecutors, past and present, to try to subpoena documents from the district attorney's office, basically to try to get discovery that, Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyers, that's what they're hired to do, not members of Congress. But that's, I think, what he has in mind. It's what, in a different form, the governor in Florida has in mind, that is to try to turn this to their political benefit.
Were you surprised that this happened today, that this happened at all?
I was surprised it happened today only because I've been following the press as you have, and it appeared that the grand jury was going to go into recess for a while. I have to say I'm impressed that the grand jury kept this as quiet and a secret for as long as they did, when obviously this is among the most significant legal actions going on at the moment. But I'm not surprised that at the end of the day, if justice required a person who was directed in a campaign fraud scheme to go to jail, that the guy who did the directing should also be held to account. That's the way it should be.
Adam Schiff, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.